here they asked me to make a piece for a special reason. It was an important reason for me because I'm a Jewish Ukrainian. I mean, in fact, I'm half Jewish from Ukraine and half Christian from Corsica, with a strange mix. And what is more important when I try to make a work for me, I want that the visitor is not in front of a piece, but inside a piece. And you saw the work rather quickly, but I think it is really important to go alone and to make the way. Then what I try to do here is the visitor can forget they are in a foundation. They don't know exactly where they are, but they are a little lost and they are inside something and not in front of something. The piece with here is a mix of different work I've already done, but each time, for me, my work is a little like a music partition. I play it, I transform it each time, and I destroyed it after, most of the time. The same work can be played in different places, but with no transport, and each time is a little different. When I make a work, it's always to ask a question, but I have no answers, it's only questions. And for me, if we speak about the Shoah here, to kill somebody is not so good, but what is worse is not to say I've killed a human, is to refuse the humanity to the person you have killed. And the humanity is given by words and by a name. And in Babia you have no words and no names. And I think it's much more awful than to kill somebody. I mean, if I'm a little excited, and if we have a discussion, if I kill you, it's not really good. But in any case, there's some kind of a human relation. What is awful is to say there's 2 tons of material who are going to arrive and we must do something with. And for this reason, my piece is in a way abstract. There's no photos, no names. There's numbers, but nobody can understand them. There's these boxes, but nobody can know what it is inside the boxes. And there's this mountain. And from the beginning of my work, I always thought that used clothes and a human body was more or less the same thing. It's an object who is in relation with the subject who is missing. In fact, I can tell you how all my work, from the beginning to now, was always a disaster. I tried to work against the fact of dying and the fact of forget, and it's totally impossible. But I knew that for a long time. And all my work is only to show that we can't survive. And it's something so strange, because everybody for me is so important and so unique. And in the same way, everybody is so fragile. So, I mean, at the best, you can remember your great father, but you can't remember your great-great-father. And it's some kind of a question that people who are so important, always so fragile, and that everything is going to disappear. And you know, like perhaps you know, I have an island in the Japan inside sea, and in this island I preserve a lot of heartbeats Now we have more than 100,000 art bees who came from a lot of countries. But I began this work something like 6 years ago, and there's already a lot of people who are dead. And you have the art bees who are, you can hear the heartbeats of these people, but they are dead. And another story is that my studio in Paris is filmed by video all the time, if I am in the studio or not in the studio. And there is a man who bought my life and who preserve all the time I am in my house and my studio. And also, if I am not there, it's preserved. And they have already thousands and thousands hours of my life. But when I shall be dead, it's going to have nothing. First, it's a real problem. I mean, if you want to look to the life of somebody else, you have no life anymore, because you pass all your time to look to somebody else, and also, at the end, you have nothing. In my case, this man pays somebody to look at me. It's the job of somebody to look at me. And in a case, I mean, each time you try to preserve somebody or something, you fail. And I think one of my questions is about the impossibility to survive. And that's the reason that today I can say 80% of my work are destroyed after the show. But we can do it again after me. You know, there's two kinds of transmission. One kind is more Christian and from Occident is by the relic, the little bones of a holy person. And the other way to make a transmission is more Japanese, by example. I'm very often in Japan. And in Japan, the temples are rebuilt every 2 or 3 years. The garden are remade every day. But you have some people who are called national monuments who can do it. Then the transmission is not by the object, but by the knowledge. And in my case, it's a little like that. I made a very large work in the Grand Palais in Paris called Person, and this work was very, very large, traveled a lot in New York and in Japan and in Italy and so on. But each time we have to rebuild everything, there was no transport, and each time it was different. And when I play my own art, but when I shall be dead, I hope somebody is going to play my art, and perhaps people are going to say, oh, it's a piece of Boltonsky played by Mr. X, and well play or bad play. And what is beautiful with the music is that there's some kind of reincarnation by the musician who plays the music. In any case, in all my work and all the images that you see, you can't see, each time there is some kind of a question. I don't speak with words, but I speak in my work with images, sound. I try, but it's very pretentious to say that, to make something a little close from art total. And there is no, I don't know, there's somebody who saw my work in Krakow a few months ago, and by example it was video and flowers. Here it's metal boxes and clothes. I mean, I have some kind of a language, but I use some words, but it's not really always the same words. Each time I try to find the word to say something. Now I'm an artist and I have 2 galleries, but I never make a show in a gallery. I don't like that. What I do mostly is to make very, very large installation everywhere, very far country, but very, very large installations were destroyed, and also to make some permanent pieces, but were very difficult to find. I have this piece in Japan, but it's rather far from Tokyo. So, I mean, you need at least one day to find my place from Tokyo. I speak to you in Tasmania, which is very far from everywhere, and nobody is living there, or nearly nobody is living there. And I made also a large piece in the north of Chile, in a desert called Atacama. And I believe it was, I was lucky to be born in this period, because like that my work is a little more cold. And perhaps if I was born in another period, I shall be too expressionist. And that's something I understood. What you can see is what you can see in my studio when you are in Tasmania. I mean, this holds the camera. When I'm in my studio, I can't escape from one camera all the time. It was not a problem for me, because the only problem that I have to have always the light, the bulb's light. Then I can be in the dark. That's my only problem with that. I can speak to you about this project because it's a strange project in a way. There is a man in Tasmania who is a gambler, professional gambler. And he wins so much money that he's very, very rich. And he is a little strange, and he made a foundation about sex and death, which is normal. In any case, he bought a lot of Egyptian mummy from everywhere from South America. And I met him, and he wanted to buy a piece of me, and I said, I want to play with you, because somebody who says that I never lost is a devil, because he believes that he's stronger than the chance. And I decided to solve in my life, but the way to solve was interesting. I didn't ask him money. I said, my life is this price, and you must to pay me until I die. And now in 2 years, he's going to give me back the money I asked for the work. If I die tomorrow, he's going to make a good bargain. If I die in 5 years, it's a disaster for him. And he told me that he never lost. And it was very serious. I mean, you have a lawyer, doctors, and it was very serious when we make the contract. And he's totally sure that I'm going to die before 2 years, and perhaps he's right. In any case, somebody who says, I never lost, is a devil, because he thinks that he's stronger than the chance. And for me, one of my questions is always around the chance. I made a large piece at the Venice Biennale 3 or 5 years ago, I think, about chance. I use a lot of photos of Polish babies of one day. I think I had 6,000 Polish babies at home, very quiet. And I use them because they are well in use, I mean, with no first name, really some hours. And the Polish baby, like all the babies, are very ugly, I can say. I hate the baby. And there was some kind of machine, and the baby were turning very, very, very quickly. And you have a computer, and sometimes the computer stops on one precise image. And during 5 minutes you can see this baby on the screen. And what I wanted to say is that if you are what you are, and if I am what I am, it's only because our parents made love at this precise time. If they have made love 5 minutes after, we shall be totally different. And one of the big questions, but it's a religious question, is if we believe in chance or in destiny. For me, I'm not a believer, and I believe in chance. I mean, if tomorrow I take the plane, and if the plane falls, if you are religious, you can believe it was right somewhere, that I must to go to Kiev, and the plane must to fall somewhere. If you are not religious, you think it's only because everything, it's only chance. There's no reason. And for me, unfortunately, I don't believe in destiny. But in any case, it's a real question. And the piece of Venice was about that. The piece you have just saw with the big mountain of crows, there was some kind of a, I don't know what to call that, a pass, something to take, who takes the crows only by chance and rejects the crows. And for me, this machine was just like the hand of God, who take us only by chance and kill us. And it was also about destiny or chance. Why I'm very old, why I survive, and why some of my friends die, it's only chance. I work a lot with dead Swiss. I made a lot of pieces with dead Swiss. At home I have something like 6,000 dead Swiss also. Because I choose the Swiss because the Swiss have no historical reason to die. They are all clean and rich. And for this reason, they are more universal in a way. And I can tell you now, after more than 10 years, that all the Swiss die. And for me, it was a work about the idea of vanitas, because the Swiss are so natural, so clean. And the photo of the dead Swiss are taken when they were alive, and they are all smiling and rich, and now they are only ashes. Then each time I try to ask questions. I don't believe I'm a modern artist, because I believe that the questions are always the same. And for the beginning of the humanity to now, there's very few questions, and there's looking for God, sex, beauty of nature, why we are going to die. There's 5 or 6 questions, that's all. And all the artists are working around this question. And for the beginning of the time to now, it's the same. I use a language of now. I use videos, I use internet, I use photos, but what the question asks are always the same. And I think I was born in Paris in the 20th century, but when I work in the desert of Atacama, I became friends with a shaman of a little Indian community, and we were very similar. And we understood each other very well. And I believe that perhaps I can be a shaman in Chile or a rabbin in Ukraine. It will be more or less the same job. The only difference that that's the reason I don't love religion, because the religion believes they have an answer, and I believe there's only a question. But by example, there's something that I'm totally sure, that our faith is made by the people who were before us. I mean, we have the eyes of a great-great aunt who disappeared totally, and the mouth of a great-great uncle that nobody cares. And our face is like a puzzle of all the people who were before us. And I believe that our spirit is also like that. And sometimes I believe that we have a knowledge which is coming from very, very, very far. But this knowledge is mixed with plenty of knowledge, but we have also this knowledge. I mean, we are going to die very soon, but perhaps, I don't have children, I don't have a child, what I told you. But perhaps for the people who have children, in 3 or 4 generations, a part of themselves is going to be present. In a case, to be optimistic, in a few years there will be another artist here, and other people who are going to listen what he say, and it will be not you and not me, but everything's go on. I mean, like a joke, but I always say that there's always new lovers in front of the Seine in Paris. It's never the same, but everything go on. And that's something very optimistic. If you have a question, I have an answer.
Yeah. I would like to ask, you work all the time with these subjects like death, always looking to the past and never look forward. Isn't making your art depressing for yourself?
Yeah, what I told you is there's very few questions in art, and it's true that one of my questions is the fact to disappear. And but to speak about the past is also to speak about the future, because everything is always the same. I don't believe in something change, and we are more and more post-human, but I don't believe so much to the change of the future. I think humans are the same always, with the same question.
So it means that humans can become better, they just always the same and there are nothing to do with it?
And also what is very important in my art and in the art, that everybody can understand what he wants. You know, the beauty of art, and for this reason it's never good to speak about art, that in art the image of art can be a cat. And it's, for some people it's a cat, for some other people it's an art. And it's always the one who looks at the piece who makes the piece. And in making the piece with his own background. The first time I had the show in Japan, the Japanese people say, your art is so Japanese. And you look like a Japanese, you must have a great father who is Japanese. And if I go in China, I'm going to have a show in China now, I hope that everybody is going to say, you look so Chinese, and your art is so Chinese. I mean, because it's always the one who looks at the art who makes the art. If you go to the cinema, you see the same movie, but each one sees a movie with different, because he sees a movie with his own background. If he, I don't know, if he divorced one day before, he's going to see another movie. And sometimes in my work there's a lot of humor, but people, who can find it? In any case, the only thing we can speak when you're an artist only about something that everybody knows. If I tell you I have a terrible headache, you can understand, I suppose. If I tell you my pancreas hurt me, you can't understand. I mean, the only way to speak is to speak about something that the other know already. And I'm more or less French, like you know, and if you can read Proust, it's because Proust is not speaking about himself, he's speaking about each one who reads Proust. Because all of us were waiting for the mother one night in our room when we were a little child. All of us were jealous. I mean, what is marvelous in art, for some time I believe that it's also very pretentious, that the artist was somebody without a face. In front of the face there is a mirror, and everybody will look at him and say, it's me. And for each one we are different, and each one can recognize himself in us, but it's very pretentious. You have a question?
I would like to ask you also, responding impression about your installation, because it's dedicated to the tragedy of Second World War and Babi Yar, but in the same time I felt that it's resonate with our situation here in Ukraine now, about like missing people and missing people like every day. Did you think about this kind of nowadays connection?
I'm going to say two things. First, there's something like Kudera, the Czech writer, wrote that I love. It's in a book, and it's a man with a guard in a cemetery, and he says, the old dead must to leave the room for the new dead, for the young dead. And unfortunately, there's always young dead. And if you are an artist, in this case, because it was the question I worked really about these awful things. But when I made the piece in the Grand Palais with the mountain, and we have seen of crows, by example, just at the same moment there was a terrible earthquake in Haiti. And if somebody told me it's about the Shoah, I said no, it's about the earthquake in Haiti. I mean, it's about suffering, it's about death, but not especially about, it's not a monument to the Shoah. And it is true that I was born in 1944, that the Shoah was very important in my life because my father was hard, like a lot of people here. But on the other way, I told you this Japanese story, and the Japanese say your art is so Japanese because in the Zen tradition you have something called the lake of the dead people, and they read my work with the lake of the dead people, with the Zen tradition that I didn't know at this time. I mean, yes, it's about, it belongs to the one who look at my work. And if you, I touch my nose, but if you lost somebody yesterday, this piece is for you. And for this you now. And if you have seen, the work is rather abstract. There's no names, no photos. And I did that because I wanted that everybody can take the piece for himself. And perhaps it's the difference between an art piece and historical museum where there's awful photos and this kind of thing.
And also, I would like to ask you concerning the previous project, because it's very much connected to my project I did in 2005 about the birds. It was also birds.
You know, I chose Polish only by chance. Only because there's a Polish newspaper, and to sell more copies, they made the photo of the baby every Saturday in the newspaper. And that's the reason. I only wanted to have very new babies, but I don't care about Polish or not Polish. It was not a...
But I mean, what I read about the calculation that it's like accounting the birds.
No, it was only by chance. It was only by chance, and you have two counters with the people who were dying and the people who were born. And that is not really true, but it's some kind of statistic. Yeah. But it is true. And now, I mean, we are here for now, I don't know, half hour. There is perhaps 2,000 people who are dead already, and 2,500 people who are born. And but I said before, there's always new people. And it was the idea to say that everything is going on. But you know, pieces are always different meaning. for example, this piece was also to the fact to when you, I don't know the name in English, when you kill your baby in the inside. Abortive? Abortive. It was also about that. Why you keep this one and you remove this one? I mean, each of my work, I try this different kind of answer to the question and different kind of question inside. And not only, it's never only something direct. And sometimes I understand my work several years after I did it. And you know, for me, you have very few ideas when you are an artist. In any case, I have very few ideas. If in the life of an artist you have 3 or 4 ideas, that's a lot. There's a difference between a fashion designer and an artist. That a fashion designer must have ideas. An artist must not have ideas. He must have one idea. And for me, to be an artist is like to have make a travel, and after all your life you are going to speak about this travel, but you can speak about the landscape, you can speak about the wine you have drink, you can speak about the people you have met, but it's always the same travel. And for me, but perhaps I'm wrong, I believe that in my life there was 3 time of creation. One time of creation when I became an adult, one time of creation when I lost my parents, and one time of creation when I became very old. And you have very, very few time of creation in your life. And also, most of the time, I do nothing. We don't have to work, we have to wait. And that's the reason I don't want to have an assistant. Because if you have assistants, they must to do something. And I have no idea, in that case they must to repeat always the same thing. And the best solution when you are an artist is to be lying on the bed and to do nothing. And in any case, that's what I do. But the problem is, it's so difficult to do nothing. It's so depressing. That's the reason I'm in Ukraine today. It's not really useful, but it's only, not to stay on my bed. And I was teacher a large part of my life, and I always say to my students, the only thing you can do is to wait and to hope. I mean, to wait and to hope, perhaps one day you can understand something. And the worst thing you can say to a young artist is to say you are professional. I hate the artists who are professional. Unfortunately, I know I'm so old that I'm a little professional, but I hope not really. When I was young, I was nearly totally crazy. I couldn't go to school, and also now it's very difficult for me to write a letter. And I never go in an art school, but after I was teacher in art school. But I never studied in an art school. And I think it is very, very dangerous to become a professional artist. And I love the outsiders, and I'm not mad anymore, but I hope I'm not too professional. And for me, but it's different for each person, but for me to be an artist is some kind of a way to feel a little better. I mean, at the beginning there's always some kind of a trauma, like the psychanalyst said, trauma, and we try to live to be better with this trauma. If we take, by example, Louise Bourgeois, that I love, her trauma was her problem with her father. And at the end of her life, she made a beautiful art, and I think also she was a little better with her father. And the life of an artist is like a very long and naive psychoanalysis. Yeah, there's a question.
Hello, I just have a question more about the photographic work. I know you use a lot of archives, and I see your work was a reflection of Bruno Barr's camera lucida. So do you see it's also like a projection of death in the photography?
I'm a very bad photographer, and I never use my own photography. I'm really very bad. But for me, a photo of somebody or a used cloth or art beads, it's the same thing. It's an object in relation with the subject who is not here anymore. And Roland Barthes said that, but it's beautiful in a photo that is not the truth, but we believe that it is the truth. We believe that this person exists really. And for this reason we are moved. And I use photos, but I use photos like a part of reality. And also like to say, because a photo is a way to preserve people, but a photo 5 minutes after you have done is no more the reality. It's something who is finished. And all this question interests me.
Do you see your projects like as a reflection of Ronald Barr's camera lucida?
Excuse me?
You know Ronald Barr's camera lucida? It's a like famous photo essay.
You know, for me it's materials. I told you that I work a lot with dead Swiss. And it's photos that found in a Swiss newspaper. When somebody dies, they put the photo in the newspaper. And I really don't care about the photos. I care about these people, not about the photos. The photos are really bad photos. And it's only to, yes, in my language, I try to use objects that people know. For example, if I use biscuit boxes, it's because, especially when I was young, we use biscuit boxes to keep the little treasure. And everybody can recognize the biscuit boxes. And in fact, it's a minimal object. But for me, it was more important to use something like everybody can recognize. And a photo, biscuit box, used clothes is objects that everybody can recognize, like they have this the same.
Questions may be a little bit simple, but here they are. Do you make measures between your everyday life and art? And one more. Which moments are more suffering, like if you're being in life or death?
For me, I said before that I do nothing, but I'm totally in the art, in my art. If I wake up on the morning time, I think about art. If I go to bed at the evening, I think about art. If you ask me, what is your country, I shall say art. I'm not French, I'm art. I mean, when you are an artist, you become only art. For some time I had a theory, but it's not really true. You know, when you look to Giacometti at the end of his life, he looked like a Giacometti. When you look to a Francis Bacon, a photo of Francis Bacon, it looked like a Francis Bacon painting. And if you look at me, I look like a biscuit box. And that means the dream for an artist is to become his own art, and to be nothing more than his own art. And yes, I'm only an artist. I don't care so much about politics, about nothing, about cars, about sport. You know, I'm inside my work, that's all. It's not a work, it's a life.